get the idea about the incredible work that he and his wife have done at their farm, Whiskey Creek Farm. But he's been doing this for longer than you might realize in the movie. For 30 years, worked as a district conservationist. Is that the right title? With the Natural Resources Conservation Service. And also has worked with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation and raises some good stakes. So
Yeah.
take it away, Bobby.
All right, thank you. Thank you all for being here. How many tree planter maintenance people do we have here? All right, good. How many of y'all are volunteers doing it? Okay, so y'all take, okay. How many funders do we have here that are in charge of the program for buffers? Okay, good, very good. Well, if we're gonna have a restored bay, clean stream, we're gonna need a lot more riparian forest buffers, a lot more. And the best marketing strategy for your program is to have a successful buffer with vigorously growing trees, no broken tree shelter, and no invasive weeds. Right? Wouldn't you all like that? Go ahead and find that work. It was working before. Not working. Come on in.
You try now?
All right. Okay. So this is like a highway billboard. And it advertises your name, your program, and it's probably the best thing for promoting your program. It's a billboard. On the other hand, a failed buffer with dead trees, broken tree shelter stakes, and invasive weeds. This is bad for your reputation, bad for the program. And in my opinion, it's the biggest reason for low enrollment. Maintenance is the key for buffer success. And that's what this session is all about. 30 years ago, 1994, I was a district conservationist. Well, 30 years ago, we didn't even have a PD. We weren't testing cows. We didn't even fund it. So in 1994, a flyer came across my desk advertising probably the first riparian forest buffer conference ever in America. Come on in.
Oh, thank you.
And it was in Ellicott City. And I was blown away. Well, first of all, I called my boss. I said, I'd like to go to this riparian forest buffer. He said, oh. Kind of took me back. I said, well, good people that get it, people that know that we need to do it to have a clean debate. And I went there, and who was on the panel but Dr. Burns Sweeney, the foremost authority on macroinvertebrate ecosystem. And he's the guy that published the research on leaf-specific mayflies or whatever. And this statement right here, improved stream health due to a forest buffer can increase the level of in-stream processing of nutrients by 8-fold. So this is the main reason we're planting trees, is because if we have native leaves in the stream, we're going to have a healthy aquatic ecosystem. So that's me, my wife Jeannie Hoffman, and our dog Val. We have 2 farms in the Shenandoah Valley. We have one on the main stem of Middle River and one on Whiskey Creek, which is a tributary of Middle River. And on the river farm, that's 20 years ago. Next month, we're celebrating the birthday of this buffer. 20 years. There's me 20 years ago. And there's me a couple months ago. So it can be done. The trees, when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. The next best time is right now. So I just wanted to share this with you, that what you're doing is good. It's gonna happen. And as long as you do the maintenance, you will have success. So 4 years ago, we bought Whiskey Creek. We call it regenerative farming because we raise wholesome beef. We do rotational grazing. We produce clean water. We fence the cows out and plant 3,000 trees. We sequester carbon. So we're harvesting this perennial forage, and we're gonna feed it out in the wintertime, and that's all going back into the soil. And like I said, we planted 3,000 trees, so we're producing clean air. And we're producing wildlife habitat. We have bobolinks, by the way, and we have grass nesting birds. And we produce renewable energy. When the sun's shining, we're probably powering the whole neighborhood. But it's fun, it's a way of life, and we love it. There's Jeannie and Val getting some exercise there. I've got a blog, a buffer blog. So if you're a nerd like me, you can sign on to the blog. There's no pop-up menus, no surveys, no AI. No, it's just me, okay, writing, okay? I wrote a book. How many of y'all have this book? It's a free book. It's a free book. How to sell buffers to a farmer. There it is right there. You can download it for free. Maintenance has finally come of age. 20 years ago, we planted trees and we just walked away. We had a lot of failures. And so thanks to the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay, NIFWIF, Chesapeake Bay Foundation, the James River Association, we get it. We fund maintenance and we do it. And it's a beautiful thing because that is your billboard for success. A successful buffer is the result of two things. You all know this: proper installation. If we do proper installation, you can forget about voles. You can forget about rabbits. We now plant with 5-foot shelters, so that'll let me, to me, we did not have any deer browse with 5-foot tree shelters. So proper installation and persistent maintenance. That's the two keys. So the objectives today list the goal. What's the goal when we plant trees?
Forest.
That's right. Explain why we plant trees. List 3 steps for a successful buffer. 3 parts of maintenance. Explain how to prevent and correct tree flopping. Anybody heard of that? It's a big problem. And then lastly, what to expect from contractors and what not to expect from contractors. Okay. So my goal is tree canopy closure. When we get that, we're starting to get the characteristics of a forest. And so, can we get that in 7 to 10 years? Yes. If you plant the tree right first. So that's the goal. Why trees? Now, I'm not going to tell you all the benefits of trees, anchoring the stream bank and shade the water, more oxygen, blah, blah, blah. I did want to share with you, this is a drone shot of our Middle River farm, and you can't quite see the beginning, but when it comes on us, it's 9 feet wide. The river's 9 feet wide. Can't jump across it. And it meanders through our farm for for half a mile exactly. We have 2 little tributaries that come in. And I sampled this river every month for 4 years for E. coli. When it came on the farm and when it leaves the farm. What effect did our buffer have on the E. coli? Now, the E. coli is an indicator of pollution, of course. So every month for 4 years, E. coli. First of all, what's the E. coli threshold for fresh water? Again, anybody know?
400.
It's 410. colony forming units per 100 milliliters of water. When it comes on us, sometimes it's over 8,000. Because all the cattle upstream. We fenced the cows off in 2004. Half a mile of buffer. What's the E. coli reduction in just half a mile? 55%.
Just by fencing out.
And planting trees.
But how long did it take the trees to make that kind of impact?
Well, I started sampling, let's see, I quit sampling 2 years ago. So, we got leaves coming into the water. And my point is, okay, so there's several reasons for this reduction. Dilution, sunlight. Our cows aren't in the creek anymore. But the best thing, the most important thing is the leaves are feeding the aquatic ecosystem. And they're eating the pollution. They're processing the pollution. So that's why. So if you're pro, people say, oh, I don't want to plant trees. They just want the fence up there and okay. But we're going to get 8-fold more cleansing power with the trees. Okay, 3 steps for a successful buffer. 1, you got to plant the right tree in the right place with the right protections the right way. So you're gonna look at your web soil survey and you're gonna pick the tree that goes with that soil, right? We're gonna do that. And we're gonna put a shelter on that tree. No shelters, 70% mortality. The Virginia Department of Forestry did a study years ago. That's what their study showed. 70% loss. So some contractors said, well, let's just plant more trees. I don't want a failed looking buffer. We need to reduce the effects of tall fescue. That's a biggie. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about that. And then perform maintenance, especially the first 3 years. So fescue, how many of y'all familiar with tall fescue? I mean, it is toxic to everything. You look it up, fescue toxicosis. It's toxic to birds, it's toxic to animals. And it's toxic to newly planted hardwood tree roots because it kills root hairs. Yeah, so you're gonna plant this tree in a sea of sod. So we're gonna have to reduce the effects of, okay, so what is it? Okay, so there's an endophyte that's in tall fescue that secretes an alkaloid called ergobene. And that's the creature, the invasive species that causes all the damage. Come on in. So there's Jenny. We planted the 3,000 trees 3 growing seasons ago. Look at this sea of fescue. It's pure fescue. And so we planted the trees in December. The following spring, we hired a contractor to spray a ring around every shelter. And that works. And there we are 2 years later. Come on in. Come on in. So we've had that. So the past 2 years, we've had extreme drought. So that tells me, 1, the trees were planted right in the first place because they lived through 2 successive extreme droughts. Okay, maintenance. We're talking about maintenance now. There's 3 parts to it. Tree shelter maintenance, that's the easy part. Well, actually, the easy part is planting the tree. The maintenance takes time and money and people power. So you got tree shelter maintenance, contractors call that TSM, and you got tree maintenance and invasive weed control. How many times do I have to go back in there and fix that? It's like endless. Maintenance is never ending the first 3 years. Now, contractors do a good job. They swoop in, Once a year, how many times y'all go in? What's your contract? Once a year? Or y'all go in all the time?
We try to hit them twice a year,
Okay,
but they're not contractors.
okay. So your contractor's gonna go in, once, maybe twice. They come in, spray around the shelter, fix a few broken stakes. Maybe cut down or spray some invasive weeds. But most maintenance cannot wait for the contractor. You think that waits for the contractor? You better fix that, because this little crack at the base is what we call a vole hotel. The voles are gonna get in there. How many of y'all pulled up a shelter and had voles drop out? It happens all the time.
But I have an organic farm, so I'm out on the spraying part.
Well, that's okay.
You say that, but you're not fighting the rock fight that I am.
Well, we used to use, turf mats, and that's a good thing. I'm not dissing that at all. This cannot wait for the contract. Okay, here's another little thing. You got the bird net. I think the first year of this planting, we had 3,000 trees. I pulled down 10% of the bird nets because the trees were coming out of the shelter. That's a good thing, but it takes time to do that. And thank goodness I had the little 1-inch hole at the top. So if I was lazy and forgot, a lucky stem could get through that. If it doesn't, it's gonna be deformed. This can't wait for the contractor either. And look here. What's going to happen right here? See that? It's a kink in the shelter. What's gonna happen? That's gonna flop. And we'll get into that. Okay. So we've got TSM. And we've got tree maintenance. Okay, so you all know what that is. That's pokeweed. Now, there's a tree in here somewhere.
Maybe.
Show you another picture of another little weed. Here's a vintage shelter, 5-foot shelter. There's the weed. Take that shelter off, look at there. Wow. The weeds like the shelter just as much as the tree does. And there's no river birch. And look here, here is the surviving sprout. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna cut that dead part off and we're gonna put the shelter right back on there, and it's gonna be a nice tree. So we saved that tree. So in my opinion, my buffer, me, the landowner, every tree matters. Every tree matters. I want to see a tree in every shelter. Now, there's your flopper. We experimented, made a mistake. Don't use vented shelters because they got less material in them. If you're using a 5-foot shelter, use a 5-foot shelter, but not a vented shelter. So we had much more flopping in the buffer that had the vented shelters. And you can't fix this. You just might as well cut that tree off. Okay, so here's my pro tip. Tree flopping is not a problem with 4-foot shelters, but you're gonna have deer browse. Which would you rather have, deer browse or flopping?
Flopping.
I think I'd rather have flopping. Because I can fix that. If I knew it was gonna happen, I could do it. So don't use vented sheltering. All right, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna prune the fast-growing trees, such as, what would be your fast-growing tree?
Black locust, wallows.
Yeah,
Sycamore.
yeah. So just prune them so they're not so top-heavy, okay? So we're gonna, okay, and then once flopping occurs, you can't read it as I said, call 911 because you're on life support. You can't wait for the contract. Okay, so here is a black willow maybe.
Yeah.
Flopping's gonna happen here. So what we did with this one is we took the shelter off and we pruned it, and I put a lightweight bark protector on it. And it could stand on its own. If I had to do it over again, I wouldn't cinch it up. I just let it kind of go around, because it'll get stiff in the joint. And here's a sycamore that hadn't flopped yet, but is going to, so we pruned that one up. And it's gonna be fine. That one, you just, if you take the shelter off, this tree is damaged. It'll just continue to grow like that, maybe. So we just cut it off and put another shelter on. Now, let's talk about that.
I hate this.
That's a Canada thistle. That's a perennial, and the farmers will hate your guts for having this because it spreads. So this buffer in Augusta County probably unsold more buffers than I could count, because the farmer will drive by that and say, "Is that what they're doing?
Hell no. I don't want that.
I don't want that on my farm." So let's talk about invasive weed control. It's labor intense, never ending. You pull, dig up, cut down, mow, spray, whatever. Get help, hire a contractor. It's never ending. Just accept that. And one thing about maintenance, we need to instill in the landowner that it's their responsibility. You know, it's their buffer. Now, we want to say, well, we'll take care of it for you. You put your name on a sign and put it out there. This buffer maintained by you. You gonna do that? If you do that, I guarantee you'll maintain it. Let's talk about mowing for a minute. Now, we mow our buffers after July 15th, because that's when the grass nesting birds are finished there. The fledglings can fly. So after July 15th, we mow. And sometimes we hire contractors to mow. And so it does make it easier to get in there and inspect your trees and take care of them. Does it reduce vole habitat? I don't know, but when I mow, I can see them running. I can. The vole wants to kill your tree. So that's why we put shelters on. And that's why we mow. But a hawk would look, a little vole running out here, a hawk is gonna pick him off in a heartbeat. Reduces invasive weeds, of course. And I think it creates goodwill for the program. Farmers, I know some riparian purists that say we shouldn't do anything in there, but I think it's good for the program. It creates goodwill. That's second year, third year. And sometimes I'll take these shelters off and put a bark protector on them. And they're freestanding after the third growing season. Now, like I said, contractors, great. We need more contractors. We need programs to fund maintenance and to hire contractors. But I think we expect too much from the contractor. They can come in and, in a couple of days, do the mowing, spray around the things and get some invasive weeds. And that's great. And it's a good business, to people. But most maintenance tasks cannot wait for the contractor. And that's where volunteer groups, your group, you need funding to hire interns or whatever and train them well to get in there and do the hard work. The hard work of getting the invasive weeds out of there and fixing tree shelters and trees. And be sure to ask your contractor for all the options. Even if you're installing, for the installation phase, I wish we'd have known about pre-emergent granules that we could just put a few shakes down the shelter to stop germination of weeds in this shelter, because I don't know how many weeds I had to get out of these shelters because the horse nettle and pokeweed and all these things can grow in that shelter. So I wish I'd have known that was an option. I would have done it. So ask for all the options. And what's their definition of tree shelter maintenance? Does that include tree maintenance? Or is it broken shelter and that's all they do is just fix the stake? So you need to ask and inspect what you expect from your contractor. And walk out there with them. Now, some of y'all answered the poll question. How many of y'all answered the poll? I know there's some of you in here. Your favorite riparian shrub, what was yours?
Red osier dogwood.
Red osier dogwood. Well, no, you know, there were several things. Nobody mentioned this one. Anybody know what this one is?
Amorpha. It's
Say again?
Amorpha.
What?
False indigo.
False indigo bush. That's my favorite riparian shrub because deer will not eat it. You can put this in a 2-foot shelter and be fine with it. You can even plant this with live stakes.
What is it again?
It's a false indigo bush. What's the genus?
Amorpha fruticosa.
There you go. Thank
Bobby,
you.
quick question on it, is it this, I don't mean to be a dork, but as baptisia,
No,
different, which is false blue indigo?
well, there's indigo bush and, well, there's indigo plant, it's a perennial. And there's false indigo bush, that's a shrub. It's not baptisia. Here's another picture of it. Now, put some in a 5-foot shelter. Big mistake, because it's gonna what? It's gonna flop. So you put it in a 2-foot shelter. So all these false indigo bush in 5-foot shelters, they've all flopped. And that's okay. We just took the shelter off and just cut it off. And it just resprouts and just keeps going. It's a great plant. Yes,
Bob, you have deer.
we did.
So do you have any other shrubs that succeed? Cause I just look at all the shrubs inside those 5-foot tubes, cause I've seen them in the 2-foot tubes and they're just deer stands.
Well, yeah,
Especially since you're mowing, you just laid out the buffet and the deer can walk down the next mowed path.
you know, deer decimate my red osier dogwoods, you know, but this one,
They don't.
they don't eat this one, so we have a lot of this. And it's great quail habitat. You know, you saw think of the seed load on that. It's wonderful. So don't put these in a 5-foot shelter. They'll flop. Just put them in a 2-foot shelter and you'll be fine. This is one in the 2-foot shelter. And we do the 2-foot shelter because we want the vole to get it.
Bob, you said they live stake well.
Yeah, yeah. As a matter of fact, this whole buffer here was all live stakes. Yeah. And that's their genetic potential right there. They're not gonna get any bigger than that.
Bobby, so if you install a live stake buffer, do you tube them?
No,
Okay.
this one was not too. We took a little rebar thing and went there and put
Walked
it
it,
there.
sure,
It miraculously grew.
sure.
Yeah. So this is one that we planted for quail habitat. So here's our objectives. What's the goal? We want tree canopy closure, 7 to 10 years. Why do we plant trees? A lot of reasons. The biggest one is that we are feeding the aquatic ecosystem. Plant the tree right in the right place. Decrease the effects of tall fescue and do maintenance. 3 parts of riparian forest buffer maintenance. Tree shelter maintenance, tree maintenance, and invasive weed control. And we talked about tree flopping and list what and what not to expect and what to expect from contractors. Let's talk. What do you want to talk about? Questions?
I got a question. How
necessary are the exclusion devices if you don't have much deer pressure. Like the
No.
tubes.
Don't do it. Don't bother if you don't have deer. Why you put in all that work for if you don't have deer?
Okay, I mean, is that really their primary function, is to keep the deer from eating the?
Well, rabbits, deer, voles.
Okay.
That's the reason for a shelter.
Tree shelters are also act as little like greenhouses essentially around your
You
seedling.
don't need that though.
And that'll help them grow faster, is what we've seen.
Yeah, they want to grow tall and straight, you know, and believe me, the first growing season, we had so many, 10% were out of the shelter the first year, because we planted them right. Yes,
I think missed this, but is there a reason you choose, a specific kind, like, it looks like you have the PVC non-vented shelters? Is there a reason you choose that rather than like the mesh wire or like the plastic covered wire ones?
we went with the Virginia Department of Forestry recommendations, which is some kind of shelter, and now, in this program, we entered into a contract with the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay, which we were in their voucher program, which gave us $3,000 per acre of buffer for anything we wanted to do related to making our operation more efficient and safer for us. And we chose to use the state would pay for 4-foot shelters. So we wanted 5-foot shelters, and we wanted to try and experiment with the vintage shelters. We also did the gravel mulch thing.
The gravel mulch work. It's killing me. I don't think it's working.
I wasn't willing to take the chance of not spraying the fescue, because I hate fescue. So we did the gravel mulch. I think it does deter voles from getting in your shelter, but if the shelter's in there right to begin with, I don't think you need it. Now, I was around when we planted 2-foot shelters and turf mats, and they worked.
Okay.
Y'all saw that 20-year buffer?
Yeah.
That was, no, those were 4-foot shelters with turf mats. Yes, question.
Yeah, the tall fescue, is that what your cattle graze on, or, I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have the tall fescue is what your pasture.
We got it everywhere.
That was planted or it's natural and that's what they graze on. But that gets into where you have
Oh, yeah. Well,
you're planting right in this pasture where you have the tall fescue.
yeah, so all that was pasture.
Regarding the stone mulch, we work extensively with Stroudwater Research. And
Yeah.
they've been researching that for quite a while.
Yeah.
And they've moved to it as their standard, if the site is accessible enough to bring in the machinery that's needed in order to do this effectively, they've gone to that as their standard because it does a good job of preventing vole damage. And it's a guarantee, once you have it there, it's there for the rest of the lifetime of the trees being there. It even outlasts, like if you have a contract for 3 years to spray, afterwards, you don't have any control, whereas the stone mulch is still gonna be there. So they're moving towards more and more of that.
Yeah, we did the stone mulch, and we sprayed. The only issue I have with that is if you have to take that shelter off,
It's a pain in the butt.
you can't get it back in there very well. You're gonna need a hand trowel, to do that. Yes,
How deep does your shelter need to go into the ground if you don't use?
2
the
to
stone
3
mulch?
inches. Yeah, the vole can't go any deeper, and so they hit the wall. And you
Wait,
want,
buried in plastic?
yeah, we call it scooch. We scooch the shelter down into the ground, 2 to 3 inches.
Okay.
Yeah. You need to do that. That's proper installation. And I will say, scooch. Scooch. Let's move.
You said that, people who get it, go to get buffers. What about people who don't get it? How do you reach them?
You try to convince them on their terms. So if it's a farmer, don't, I put in hundreds of buffers on farms. And I asked every single farmer, what compelled me to do it? And y'all should be doing that too. You get a record of, well, why did you do it? I've never had a farmer say, I want to sequester more carbon. I've never had one say, I want pollinator core. The number one reason farmers will do it, if they're livestock farmers, is they need more water distributed throughout the farm. The second reason, most popular reason, and they are leery to tell you, but they lose calves in calving risk areas. In other words, a heifer will go, she's pregnant, she's in labor. Where does any animal go when they're in trouble? They go to the water. You shoot a deer, they go into the water. Cows in trouble, calving, go to the water. Guess what? They have their baby. It's 30 degrees. Baby can't get up because it's, a ravine or whatever. Baby dies. So that's the number two reason. It eliminates calving risk areas. And so that fence is huge insurance against calving loss. Okay?
How do the buffers distribute water across the farm more in a better way?
Because if you fence the creek out, you gotta supply them with water some way else, so you pipe water to other troughs throughout the farm. But they, the state program in Virginia is wonderful, they drill you a well. Put it under pressure, we got on the Whiskey Creek farm, we have 6 waterers distributed strategically throughout the farm. Whereas they used to just come to the creek, now we can distribute the grazing. And around each trough, we have a 40 by 40 corral with used guardrail from the Department of Transportation, which the Alliance paid for. And we have 4 gates in each one to 4 different pastures. So we use the waterer to rotate the cattle. Okay. Yes, sir.
Just kind of building on their question there too, you were talking about, you can't always wait for the contractor, like there's stuff you gotta do. How are you convincing the farmer, they already got a lot on their plate, how are you convincing they're gonna do more work now?
That's tough.
On that buffer.
That you're exactly right. They might not want to. So you go to the Friends of the Middle River, friend of this river, friend of the Severn River, and you get some volunteers to do it, or you get one of these organizations here to, alert them to this need. We have a great need for maintenance. And I'm appealing to NIFWIF and the Campbell Foundation, whatever, to fund y'all's groups that can fit that niche, can fill that niche. Okay? Yes, sir.
If you don't do the maintenance, what percentage of the trees will you lose?
Man, okay.
Isn't that how bad you are? Yeah.
So when we first started CREP in Virginia, I was the CREP technical coordinator. I went all over the state training our people how to lay out CREP areas. And back then we used 2-foot shelters and we walked away. And I would say that going back now to those buffers, I would say that 10% are a forest, but they're full of autumn as well as the trees. So from a water quality standpoint, they're effective, but from a sell the program aspect, not so good. Okay. So maintenance is the key to a successful buffer program. Yes.
Do you leave the tubes on for deer buck rub?
Stroud recommends you leave the tube on forever, okay? Sometimes I do that, but in the buffer I showed you that's 20 years old, I took those shelters off.
But they were only 2-foot shelters, they were
No,
really
no,
good.
they were 4.
Okay,
And I took that shelter and turned it upside down and hung the shelter by a low branch so that it just dangled there like a pie plate in the garden. The deer never bothered.
those ones.
Yeah, if you didn't have something to
Yeah.
scare the deer, they will buffer.
Yeah,
I guarantee you that.
after all that work to have that method.
Yeah.
Something else for buffer that we often recommend our landowners, if you just, like, a lot of these trees are perforated all the way straight down, so just take a knife and cut it down and loosely leave it around your tree, so then it can also breathe, you won't have insects, like burning in there and ruining the bark and everything. But it does protect really, really well against buffer, we found.
Yes.
I'm curious, why do animals go to the water when they're from?
I don't
Yes, sir.
I got something I think you'll like. So we've been working with big live stakes, doing 8 foot tall live stakes and planting them right into into a riparian zone, native live stakes, whether it's willows, cottonwood, sycamore. We're trying to do more, get more species into this. And we're finding really, really good success rates with these. And because they're already 8 foot tall, and so they're above grass height, they're above all of your vegetation, your reed, canary grass. We're trying to get them into Phragmites, and see if we
Okay,
can
yeah.
get them established in
Yeah.
frag stands. So we're working with Stroud on that. They're big enough, they're a big live stake, so they don't need a stake, a traditional wooden or fiberglass stake. And so we're able to protect them with just a little wrap, planter cells, these little like 4 foot tall plastic wraps for like $1.50. Put those around there, they're very breathable. So your material cost is a fraction of even what the cost of the tube would be. And we find that they go in really fast too. And you can grow them yourself.
Yeah.
So that's something that I see as you get twice the plant and they grow a whole lot faster. And it costs you less to do. And really the bottleneck is growing your own material for this and growing nice, tall, straight, 8 foot plus material from these native live
That's
species.
awesome. We planted Banker's dwarf willow and Stringco willow in a nursery. And we take cuttings off of that, and of course, they're not as big as that, but you know, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. And who are you with?
Trees for grazers.
There you go. There you go. Okay. Other questions?
Can I ask a follow-up on that point? The species you mentioned were sycamore and black
Willow
willow.
and cotton.
So any of your willows,
Uh-huh.
especially your tall tree form ones, cottonwood, and any of your true poplars, your populus, sycamore. I want to try with river birch. I want to try with box elder. I've been told does this well, and then I want to try with alders as well.
And for the live stakes, you just trim a straight branch and then stick it in the ground, and that's really it.
We manage them. We cut them every year or two, so that we get from the base. We get nice, tall, straight growth. Because you don't want weird curves, or else you can't put a shelter on there, or if you do, it doesn't stay on there. So you want nice and tall and straight, so it goes in the ground really well, and you can put a tube on there, or one of these wraps. So you want to manage it for that kind of growth, but it's once those trees are established, it's really low maintenance.
Yeah.
And then you put them in the ground a foot, 18 inches, whatever you can in the wintertime.
Very good. Thank you. All right, anything else? Well, thank y'all for being here.
Guys, you can give me your surveys and I'll give you a ticket and you can go win some fabulous